Hello, hello, it's Jessica. I am back on with another live. Hey, y'all. Now, I was on this morning as a part of a virtual YouTubers Unite conference, and I was talking specifically about tech. And so, if you want to check out that video, it's IT, I think it's IT jobs or skills that are in demand right now. And so I did that earlier as a part of the other YouTuber's name who hosted the event. Her name is Swarthy Davis. So if you're interested in that, she has a full playlist about that YouTubers Unite virtual conference for IT folks. So if you're interested in IT, interested in maybe moving into IT, just hearing from other folks or learning about YouTube from an IT perspective or anything related to that, please do check out her playlist. Let me put her in the comments here too. That person's name is Swarthy Daisy. Virtual conference. Okay, throwing that in the chat. So, what I want to talk about today in this afternoon session live is this issue that I've been seeing for a while. I've been seeing a lot of articles talking about baby boomers. And you guys know maybe 3 weeks ago, I talked about the pandemic and how it was really hurting women. And so I highlighted all types of women in the United States and globally. And I highlighted the different ways that this pandemic was really affecting women in particular. I actually got a few comments on that following the fact after I shared the live video. And a few people were like, well, I remember one commenter was saying, well, women have most of these stay at home jobs. So I was like, okay, even in this article I'm going to review talking about baby boomers, they're still talking about the fact that women have been the hardest hit from unemployment and all these different numbers. So I talked about that before. Women are definitely and have been affected by the pandemic. Now, I do want to just spread some light on our baby boomers, and I'll also be talking about the millennials. So my crowd, so anybody that's like, I think 25 up, I think it might even range up into some millennials might be in their 40s now. But anyway, I'll be talking about baby boomers in this session, and I want to share this article that really caught my attention about baby boomers, because I'm not really, I know things like ageism exist. I know, the older crowd, some of them have been affected, but this article really highlights a couple of specific points and gives some examples on specific people, and they're telling their story of like what happened to them and where they were, and specifically the age group of that 60 to 69. So a lot of folks that are still like they're working, they're trying to retire, but they're just not there yet. Probably numbers wise, they're not there yet, right? So I'll be talking about that. And hello, hey Edward, hi King of Kills, you made it, King of Kills. And hi Sharky, hey, my new friend, hello, welcome in. All right, so this one I'm going to talk about. Again, I don't think there will be as much of a follow-up from this one. I think most people will agree that, the older folks, and I say older folks, 60, 69, I guess it's not super old, but, our more seasoned group of folks have been really affected by this, of where some of them, they don't feel like they can even retire, that's sad. So here's the article. It is it was a post by Market Watch. And Sharky says, I was going to say, no way, you're a boomer. No. Okay, Gen X. All right, I see you. I might have to do You know what's crazy before I get into this article? I don't ever really hear anything about Gen Xers, and I don't really think about Gen Xers, but they are a chunk that's working right now, and it's crazy that no one really talks about Gen Xers. It's primarily the baby boomers, and it's been the millennials for the longest time. But let's talk about this article. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Let's see. And I get these ads that are in Spanish. And now I'm getting an ad for StreamYard. Okay. So this generation struggles in their 60s as their working lives end. So it's a couple of different points in here I do want to highlight. I'm just going to talk about the article, though. I didn't read it fully. I skimmed it earlier this morning, and I skimmed it whenever I first saw it. But the highlights are they're going to throw out some stats about baby boomers and why they've been so affected, where they've come from. And I have my own personal thoughts about baby boomers. I don't think most baby boomers should be in the place that they're at because they have enjoyed a lot of, like, they've enjoyed good economies, right? As opposed to millennials, where we've kind of continued. We were born during a time where, like, the economy was it was okay, you know, it was growing, and then it was slashed, and then you come out of school and it's slashed, and now it's slashed again. So it's like, it's kind of crazy. So they're talking about baby boomers. They were born and raised during the golden age of the U.S. economy, which lasted from 1948 through 1973. So yeah, this time where you have a high school diploma, as they're pointing out, and you can get a job. You can get a high-paying job with just, you know, a high school diploma. If you have a college degree, you're really living a high life, right? You're going to be a manager or something. So we're taking it from there. They're living that American dream to now they've kind of gone through some different transitions and now they're struggling. And we're looking at this generation, 1946 to 1964. So we're focusing on the folks in their 60s because something that the article pointed out, and I think we all know, a lot of baby boomers, they're retired. So they're getting their Social Security income. If they're not getting Social Security income, they're probably still working, or they're getting, you know, Social Security and they're working to make ends meet, right? Or they're living a good life. Maybe they're living off the 401k, but we've seen how the stock market has, you know, crashed, and we've seen a lot of movement there. So it says COVID-19. Well, I guess I shouldn't be saying COVID, but the pandemic made the problem a lot worse. Nearly 900,000 Americans between the ages of 60 and 69 lost their jobs between December 2019 to December 2020. And just note, this article was posted this month, this year. What was it this year or 2020? I think it's 2021. Let me just double check. Yes, so February this year. So this is where we're at. It's also made things worse for Americans in their 60s, looking for one more act in their professional lives, and worse prospects that are foggy as the legacy of their generation, which started out wanting to change the world and found late in life and that the world, they chastens them instead. Behind those numbers, okay, hopefully I'm still sharing. It keeps going black on me. I have no idea why it does this to me. Let me know if you can see. I can see on my end, but it's like doing some weird things. Let me see here in the comments. Let me know if you can see anything. It did this to me before and it's doing it again. Why? Let me stop sharing and try to share again. All right, let's round 2. Let's try this one more time. I might just have to not zoom in on it. That may be the issue. Let's see. Oh, hey, Mr. 100 Rounds. Hello. Yes, good vibes. Sharky said you never think about us. JK, sometimes it seems like we're a bit forgotten. Yes, I've definitely seen that. Gen X, it just in the media even, you're just not talked about, so no one really thinks about it so much. Okay, so Mr. 100 Rounds is saying a black screen, it is dark, and Ever says it's back. Okay, we're back. Yes, okay, great. Let's see. Okay, so really the essence of this is they're getting into these folks that are in their 60s, they're trying to retire, but as they're trying to work towards retirement, they can't. So That's what the article is saying. And now we're back. It's acting crazy again. It's acting crazy. It won't let me share. Okay, when I got with StreamYard, I just walked through the article with you guys. So if you're interested in looking at the article, it is linked in the About section. So what they did a study themselves. They reached out to folks on LinkedIn in October, and they just started gathering some stories. And so I'm going to talk about these specific scenarios. So we have one person, and all of them thought that they could not find work because of age discrimination. I do want to highlight that they had stories of people that said they sent out dozens of resumes. They're getting, few job interviews and even fewer offers, and it's just taking them longer. Well, I will tell you, as a recruiter, I know for folks that are older, it is going to take you longer typically to find a job, unless you're looking for, if you're looking to be a greeter at Walmart, maybe not. But sometimes even for those type of positions, they're looking for someone younger, or they're looking for someone that in the mindset, we think, well, if you're younger, you're going to be more flexible, you're going to be more tech savvy, and all of these different things that come with kind of molding an employee, right? But when you get to the older crowd, a lot of the value that comes with being older is really left out, like leadership skills, communication skills, already having a lot of knowledge and being easily able to learn. A lot of that does not get, even factored in, and just accountability and being, that older folks are going to show up to the job a lot of the time, right? So a lot of that value that older professionals bring into the workplace can be overlooked. And then there's also the aspect of just the sheer number of people that are applying to jobs, and this thought of being overqualified. So they're overqualified, we're going to have to pay them more. Or they're overqualified, they're going to want to lead instead of actually do something. So we want people that can execute and do these different tasks versus just tell someone else to do something. So a lot of that thinking definitely comes into play into the workplace. So we'll jump into these stories and kind of see what people are saying. So we have one case. We've got this guy named Curtis Burnt. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's 65, and he's saying that he felt that people eliminated him because of his age. You go in, and this is in quotes, you go in and they look at you and they say, too old, you're done. And you know what? That's another aspect. I'm glad this is the first statement, because that's another thing that I have heard as a recruiter. Is this person looking to work? I want someone that's going to stick around for like 5-10 years. This person is close to retirement. I've actually heard a hiring manager say that, and this was a few years ago. I heard it not as directly stated, like in recent years, but I've definitely heard hiring managers say like, hey, are they looking to like work for the next 5 or 10 years? Or are they looking to retire? They're older. And we get into that ageism thinking, right? So this person is saying they just find it discouraging. People don't want to give you a chance, said the 61-year-old Karen Matter. So we have an older woman that's also giving this perspective, saying it's just discouraging to her. They don't want to give you a chance. So we're going to talk about the story. Let's see if I'm going to try one more time as I get into the story to see if it shares. And I will just read it off to you. And I see people saying it's back. I don't think it's back. Let's see. Let's try it. For the win. No? Okay, yes. Now when I flip over, I wonder if it's going to work. Okay, fingers crossed it continues. So Curtis and Burnt and Lulu McCarthy. So we're going to talk about them. Curtis Burnt and Lulu McCarthy spent their careers at the nexus of skilled craftsmanship and technical engineering. Burnt began as a draftsman and then moved into product design thanks to an associate's degree in mechanical engineering from what is now Purdue University, Fort Wayne. For 43 years, all in Indiana, he did advanced quality control, made mock-ups of new products, and streamlined manufacturing processes to reduce defects and improve efficiency. Sounds good. McCarthy started out as a machinist, working race cars and locomotives. Okay. Then got a degree in mechanical engineering from a technical college in Sacramento, California. So worked as an engineer. So we're talking about highly skilled people, technical. They're in engineering, both of them. So he worked as an engineer and product designer at companies like Q Space and Communications, Autodesk, good companies, for eventually relocating to North Carolina, to Connecticut. So that's another thing too that shows up. As you get older, a lot of times, you're not as relocatable. You have a house, you have kids, you got grandkids maybe, and it's harder for you to actually move and take a job somewhere else. I'm recruiting right now for territory managers with sales, and one of the requirements is you have to be able to move to a different location to get different promotions. So that ability to be able to relocate is something else that's really challenging for, older folks. I see King of Kill saying life is hard. Oh my goodness. See, that's a whole nother topic, King of Kills. Oh my goodness. Okay, so for both men, the axe fell early in 2020. Well, wait, saying 2020. Okay, early 2020. So probably, for right in the midst of the pandemic. Bryant had been working for a decade as a senior mechanical designer. And this seems like a safe gig, right? Mechanical designer, mechanical engineer, machinist, all these skills sound very relatable. Everything was good, then all of a sudden, and I mean really all of a sudden, there was a huge financial issue and they decided they were going to have to get rid of people. They're saying in quotes, I had just turned 65. Ooh. And 3 days later, they didn't need me anymore. It's impossible to prove, but they assured me that my age had nothing to do with it. Well, I mean, here's the thing, is companies are definitely not going to say it's because of your age, but if you have tenure with a company, that does come to play. If you are one of the higher paid, if you're going to be a cost savings to them, and they can maybe keep someone that's at a lower pay doing a similar job, well, companies are going to do that. All we have to say is, it's financial. We have to do this for business reasons. Yes, your age is factored in, but it's not like they're saying, oh, you're 65, it's time for you to go. It's not like that's happening, right? So it's a little bit of, it's in there, but it's just not direct. So McCarthy's layoff was equally abrupt just before his probation period ended, and he would have been hired on permanently. I got to my 59th day of probation, and he told me I wasn't a good fit for the company. I had glowing reports from my colleagues, and then I was handed a see you later notice. Okay, so he got a layoff. He got the pink slip. I've never actually seen a pink slip, but I know that's the term for it. McCarthy speculated his layoff came in the wake of review of healthcare insurance premiums by a new insurance broker the company hired. They're trying to reduce costs. That's it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They're reducing the costs. And again, when you think of who has been there the longest, who's making the most money, either you're going to get the cuts at management level, not at the C-suite, of course, a lot of times, unless there's some, ethics stuff going on. It's more that middle management that's going to go away. It's not really leadership or top leadership. It's mostly the middle managers. And there's also scenarios where a lot of management duties or supervisor duties are becoming obsolete because you have, which I was talking about in the session this morning or at noon today, you have automation coming. It's coming. AI is coming. A lot of these tasks that managers do, like signing off on time, right, or checking over certain projects, that's all going to be automated soon. So the middle managers definitely suffer during these time periods. And then, your senior professionals, like the senior mechanical designer, I think he said he was, that type of job you would think is safe, but even those are not. So it's all too familiar story that with just as familiar human toll. I was treated so shoddily. I haven't heard that word. I haven't seen that word in the sentence. said burnt. The shock and hurt still in his voice months later. They had people there that were younger than me, that had less experience than me, but then I was probably getting paid more too. Yes, and that is it. And you know what? I've had experience myself taking it to another angle from the person that's coming in. I had a lady, and I think I've told this story on my channel before, but I started working at a company in 2018, and I was a trainer, and I was just looking for someone in the office. I was still fairly new. I was looking for this person, saw a friendly face over to where they said this lady sat. I was a trainer, so I think I needed to get some materials to her or something. And so this lady, for some reason, decides to say, how long have you worked here? And I'm like, oh, I'm a new employee. I've been here, I don't know, probably 2-3 months, whatever. Like, yeah, I've been working at this company for as long as you've probably even been born. Like, this is something that this lady was saying. And that actually hurt, but I knew where it was coming from, because you had a lot of newer folks coming into the company, and they all were younger than 30, right? So, and even I think at that age, when you're like in your 60s, you probably even see 30 as being really young. But we're coming in, we're doing these jobs. You're seeing us around the office, and you're seeing the older folks that have been working with the company for years. You're seeing them be laid off. So I totally understand where that comes from, and I do have some other points I want to talk about with that. Like, there are things that I feel like folks can do to help make that not as much of a thing, because there are some conversations I've had with older workers, and it's more of a skills gap. They need to focus on the skills. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So they're highlighting the applications, the sheer number of applications folks are putting out, and what the results are. So Burnt has applied for about 50 full-time job openings and gotten a handful of interviews. And I'm like, hey, at least you're getting interviews. There are some people that are putting out job applications and they're not getting anything. They say everything's good until the face-to-face interview, and then it's dead. From other people I've talked to in my age group, that's pretty much the pattern, he said. I'm searching all the time, every day, said McCarthy. He's dropped his required salary to $45,000 a year, less than half of $80,000 to $120,000 that he's used to make. So this is a big no-no. I never say do this. But he said he's resigned to not getting a full-time position with benefits. So he even is looking for maybe contract or consultant jobs. I think you have to market yourself as a consultant contractor, he said. Otherwise, you're not going to make any money at all. He's worried his skills will, I don't even know what that word means, to be honest, atrophy, if he doesn't find work soon. In today's job market, if you lose your edge, you're screwed, he said. So, yes, there's a little bit of truth here. Now, going back to him, so he's saying he dropped his required salary to $45,000. So he slashed it in half. This is a big no-no. It's a big no-no. What I think this person is trying to do is find the same exact role that he had been doing in the past. And this person may need to upskill, or they may need to look at management level positions or something that matches his qualifications really well. I'm sure age is coming into factor, but here's the thing too. With older workers, you have a lot more of a network, or at least you should have. And so what I hear some of the time is that people have not been connecting to the people that they've been working with for years and years. There should be people on deck that can refer you. And something else I hear often when I'm interviewing someone that, they worked at a company. For example, I talked to someone worked the same company for the past 20 years, actually slightly over 20 years, and they're not used to interviewing. They haven't interviewed. Well, you should still, whether you've been at a company 1 year or 20 years, you should still be networking and interviewing and seeing what's out there, what skills are needed in the market, because you may find that even in tech, your skills are not relatable anymore. So I'm going to take a pause and continue on that just to check in on some comments, because I saw some comments coming through. But there are some things that, older workers can do, you can't just solely blame ageism. It's not just ageism. There's a lot of factors at play, right? And a part of it is the skills. If you have the skills, especially some of these really niche skills, people are going to want you. They don't care, old, young, blue, green, whatever. They need you because they don't have anyone. They're paying sponsorships of $20,000 just to get people overseas to do the job. They want people to do the job, but there's a gap in skill a lot of the time. Okay, let me see here. Hey, House of Yorks, welcome in. Welcome, welcome. Maybe, so House of Yorks is saying maybe she felt threatened by the younger folks. I think that was a lot of it. I think it was a lot of fear, seeing these younger folks come in, and for some reason she just felt comfortable telling me, oh, you're I've been here longer than you've been born. But it's a lot of fear, like what's going to happen to me. So a little resentment there, right? Older persons can sometimes bring a lot to the table by the way of experience. Yes, definitely. By the way of experience, the way they think, communication, leadership, all of these different skills that a lot of older folks definitely will have, for sure. Thank you for sharing that, Edward. And I do agree. Now, what I will say, and here's the gap that I do see, and I'm going to focus on IT for this, because you would think, again, IT is a space where you got it made in the sand, you can kick back, but no, everything is constantly changing with IT. So I've talked to folks where they have literally worked on one mainframe system for a company, and the company's switching over to something new because that mainframe system doesn't work, or they only need one person or two people or whatever, or a smaller group of people to work on this mainframe system as they transition to new technologies, which, there's a new technology, I feel like, every week that we need to know about and start using. So they're not, some folks are just not keeping up with their skills. They're literally kicking back. I work at the job. They're good. I don't need to, pick up on these new skills. I know this one thing and I know it really well. Okay, that's great, but you're constantly shifting. The technologies are changing. You have to grow with that. So with the older professionals, a lot of the thinking is already kind of biased to, you're not up on new technologies. People already think that. So you're not going to change that thinking if you're in this dynamic of, I know this mainframe system, I'm good, I don't have to change, I don't have to learn anything new. Well, why is someone going to hire you over someone that maybe they have 3 years of experience, or constantly learning new technologies, and they were born in an age where you have technology at your fingertips? So they're just used to, having everything at their fingertips, knowing that everything's going to change, being really moldable, and all of that stuff. The other thing is just a lot of the thinking towards the behaviors of the younger versus the older. So there's a lot of stigma, I guess, around that too. So I will say at this point about the consultant contractor, that I do see that as you get kind of up there in years, a lot of times you will want to transition to a consultant, because it's just easier for you to get those type of jobs, and that highlights a lot of the value that you have. You get all of that experience and you're able to consult with different businesses. You're using your communication skills, all these different things that a younger crowd may not have yet. So I definitely will agree with Edward on, older people can bring a lot to the table. But again, I think the real issue is making sure that, one, your skills are still solid and you're networking. You can't stay at a company 10 years and think that you're safe. Like that, that's just over. It's gone. And I think that thinking is still there from a lot of baby boomers, because they came into the world with this, it's kind of expected. Like, you got a diploma, you're good. You're going to live a decent life. You have a college degree, you're going to be rich. You're going to be wealthy, So that type of thinking hasn't changed for most people. And then they're kind of side tracked, or I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but just kind of, I guess, surprised by getting a termination or a layoff, because they never thought it would happen. because they've been living the good life for so long. Whereas for us millennials and everyone entering the job market now, we already know. Like, we had the whole stigma of, and I'll talk about millennials in another video more in depth, but we had the stigma of, well, you guys move around too much. You work at one company for a year, then you move on to the next one, right? But it's because we did not come from the same environment of thinking, yeah, this company, we got to work here for 5 years. We got to work here for 10 years and we're good. So my mom has even told me every time I change a job, she's like, what? You should stay with that company for 10 years and then you'll be really good. I'm like, Mom, if I stay at this company for 10 years, I'm going to get paid like the same amount. I'm going to get like a 2% increase every year. That's not going to work. And my skills are not going to be great. Why would I stay with this company? They're not going to do the same thing for me. They're not going to have me tell them like, hey, you can't lay me off because I need this job. No, I need this for the next 15 years. No, it doesn't happen. So the thinking just has to change. Let me see here. King of Kills is saying, when it comes to tech, I feel like I'm 60 already. Whenever something new comes out, I'm like, something else I gotta figure out. I mean, yeah, it's literally that way. It's like it's constantly something new. And so when you get to the folks that are more seasoned, you already kind of have people looking at them saying, oh, they don't know. And so those that are older, they kind of have to prove it. They have to say, look, I have the skills, right? Okay, so this person is saying, let me make sure I'm on the right track. Okay, so we're still in McCarthy. They're drawing unemployment benefits. They're qualifying for Medicare. He has 4 children. They're grown. His domestic partner has a job, but he doesn't have much saved in his bank account. This is the other thing I wanted to talk about in this video. So he doesn't have much saved in his bank account or IRA from which he has made a partial withdrawal. How? Like, how? How do you not have savings or barely anything in your IRA as a baby boomer? You came into the world with booming economies. Yes, there's been ups and downs, but you had the best chance. Like, looking at baby boomer, Gen X, millennial, like, you have the great chance where you did not need to jump through hoops to get jobs. Like today, like for someone that's coming out of school right now or someone that has a couple years of experience and are looking for a job, we already know you got to be on point. You have to have a job, you got to have a side income, you have to have X, Y, and Z other things to make the type of income our baby boomers actually were able to make. You had low housing prices. You just had so much opportunity, right? So when I see these stories of baby boomers not having savings, it's like, okay, so you just took everything for granted. You took the job that you had for granted. I mean, you're coming from the time of the pension. It's just like, what? How? But I think that has a lot to do with it. I think, it was, you have your Social Security you can depend on. Live life. You have your pension. Live life. You don't have to save. Buy it up. And there's a lot of spending going on, but where's the savings? That whole, that's what I don't get. And these guys, again, technical jobs, making 80,000, like, you can save. There are people making 45 and 50,000 that are saving. So it's just like, make it make sense, right? So let's move on here. They're saying, at least I have the motivation knowing that I don't have the cash to fall back on. He said, so when I'm 68 or 70, I don't want to be sitting with a can and a sleeping bag on a corner somewhere begging for food. It's like, but how does it get to this point? How? You had the good life. You had the good life. I just don't understand. Now, I will say there wasn't as much education easily available on financials, right? That is partially true. However, with folks that are in professions like this, you had HR, you had, all these different benefits that I know HR was telling people about. You have the IRA, you have the 401k, you have the pension, you have the high savings account, like all these different things that it's just like, how do you have nothing? You've had decades. Anyway, I'm gonna move on along here because now I'm just like, you guys know, I'm just ranting. Burnt's children also are grown, and his wife works full time. He qualifies for Medicare and plans to take Social Security when he reaches full retirement, just past 66. Okay, but though he's in decent financial shape. Okay, how are you? Hold on. I think we're talking. Okay, McCarthy is the one who had nothing. Burnt is okay. All right. So he's in decent financial shape. He said, I think I still have a lot to contribute. So this person, it sounds like he just wants to work. He doesn't want to, just be at home. And I totally get that. Decided I'm going to pursue something other than engineering, he said in a message. 45 years is enough. I just haven't figured out what that will be at. Now, that's the thinking I love. And we're going to move on to Karen here in a second. But that is great thinking because it shows that agility, that ability to pivot and try something new. I think that's great. So I would see Burnt being in a much better place because of that thinking than McCarthy. I feel really bad for McCarthy over here. He doesn't have savings. I just don't understand how you don't have savings again. No savings. You had decades. You're the baby boomer. You were you were in the best opportunity to do so. All right, so moving on to Karen. Let me check for the comments. What's going on? What are you guys talking about? Mr. B, hey, Mr. B. The rule of thumb, pay yourself 2% before anything else. Start the budget from there if possible. Yes, pay yourself first. We've heard this. How long has Dave Ramsey, guys like Dave Ramsey have been along, telling people, pay off your debt, save, pay off your debt, save. Like, same story. He's had the same model for decades. I think he's a baby boomer. So I just don't understand. But again, it goes back to that thinking and taking things for granted. It's so interesting that a lot of baby boomers were saying to millennials, my crowd, that we're entitled because we would come into organizations and, we would want certain things. We would have demands. But here's a group that had everything, didn't really have to make any demands, did their work, got the bonuses. They just had to show up, come to work. They would get bonuses. They would be financially, motivated by a lot of this stuff. And we're in a place where we have to literally demand and negotiate to get a lot of things that the baby boomers had just handed to them. So it's just so interesting to me. All right, so moving on to Karen, King of Kill's friend. So Karen, so this is a geologist. I'm not really familiar with how much geologists make, but I don't know if it's going to be in the 100K mark. And we already know women make less than men. So let's see. When Karen Matter was a young geologist working on oil wells in southern Indiana, a male rig worker said to her one day, "I don't think women belong in oil fields. What do you think?" First of all, women belong everywhere, okay? I will say, I will not be in the oil field, but we can do anything. Okay, I said, well, I'm the wrong person to answer because here I am. Oh, I love that. It was the kind of super polite comeback you'd expect from a mother of three from the Great Lakes state. Yet Matter quiet determination made her a pioneer in an overwhelming male-dominated field. So she's a male-dominated field. Okay, cool. But the strain of her young family being away for 2 or 3 weeks at a time caused her to change careers. And I've talked about this on my channel too. Women working, and when you start having all those kids, you have all those kids, right? And how do you manage work and the kids and the family and all of this? So I have my own thinking behind that. I think women, if you're married and you're having kids, you should have the option to take care of those kids at home. But we see her needing to make a career change because, right, who's going to take care of the kids if you're 2 to 3 weeks traveling, right? So, using the computer knowledge she acquired as a geologist, she took a job at a nearby Central Michigan University where she had earned her master's degree. Okay, so well educated, working in the department that oversaw charter schools, which were then launching in Michigan and across the country. 23 years later, she's been at this university 23 years. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I am talking about. 23 years? How? And I know thinking is different. How? Okay. So 23 years later, in August, the university let her go and others go. They decided they had to release them down, and for whatever reason, they picked my job to eliminate. I mean, I don't know what she was doing. It doesn't really say too much. She was in the department that oversaw the charter schools. That doesn't seem crucial to a university. I mean, it's not like she's keeping the university running or something. It sounds like she's managing one of those community programs, right? So since then, she's applied to, she's saying 45 jobs, at least 45 jobs, but with no luck. 45 jobs really isn't that much. Someone saying, "Oh, I applied to 45 jobs." I mean, in this type of market, you have to do a lot of work to get a job. And so, I mean, I know it's tough. I've been there. I've been laid off and I've had to apply to more than 45 jobs for sure. But I'm also a recruiter, so I was able to get a job within between 3 to 4 weeks. I think this online hiring has made it worse, is what she's saying. The human factor has totally gone out of it. You can't fight the computer, but you can fight the computer. You can. So in this situation, I feel like a little entitlement here because she's saying, here's what Karen's saying. Karen's saying, I've applied to at least 45 jobs, had no luck. I think this online hiring has made it worse. The human factor is totally gone out of it. You can't fight the computer. When people start saying you can't, I just hear excuses, because my question would be to her, okay, what are you actually doing other than applying to jobs? Are you networking? At 23 years, again, at a university, you have contacts. You should have contacts where you can call them up and say, hey, we work together. Let me tell you some updates on my life. Like, let's chat, let's catch up. Or people just in your circle that you can talk to and say, hey, let them know what's going on in your life and what connections they have, and you can go from there. Something that typically older folks, that's like a really big strength for them because they've had years to accumulate a really solid network. So that's really sad. Now, the human factor has gone out of it. Yes, things would be better if we could just kind of meet people face to face and kind of get an understanding of that versus using a resume. I totally 100% agree. But the fact is you have to do it this way unless you're networking with people, but you still have to have that resume or, use these tools. But my question to her would be, do you understand the applicant tracking system? Do you understand how it works? Have you met with a career consultant? Have you worked with people to make sure that you can fight the computer? So that would be my point back to her. Okay, so fortunately, Karen Matter, put aside 13% of her salary each year in her retirement plan. Okay, that is a winner. Love that. And the university made generous matching contributions. Her 3 daughters are grown. One is in divinity school, and her biggest financial challenge is a jump in medical insurance premiums over $600 a month. Yeah, that's something that we don't really think about when we're saving. We don't think about, okay, when we get older, we're going to have more medical bills most likely. And, looking at stats on just the healthcare in this country and seeing how people eat on a day-to-day, seeing how people don't work out. I mean, the fact that there's, when you drive down the street, a fast food place, it's like a McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever, Popeyes, all the stuff that I don't eat personally, but they're racking in the money. Yeah, you're going to have to put aside, the cost of that bad, eating and no working out and just, whatever else is to come in terms of healthcare. But I'm really happy to see that she has put away savings. That's great. Let's see here. I see your point. Yes, King of Kills. Education was way cheaper. Yes. I mean, education has skyrocketed since. I mean, back then, when you were a baby boomer, you could go to school and get the education for a couple $1,000s. So you hear baby boomers, a lot of times they will brag and say, I paid for college myself. And you guys, some of you guys know when I talk about my story, how I got started and, from college to moving into the working world. I worked as in a campus call center. So I would talk to alumni. And since I was on the pre-law track, I talked to a lot of lawyers. And I would hear them say, like, oh, I don't want to contribute money to the school. You guys can do what I did back in the day. And, you can just work through school and pay for it. Yeah, college is $5,000, Sure, I could pay for that. But $40,000 a semester, and that was the price. It was like 45,000 a semester when I was in school. So depending on what school you go to, it just depends. So you're gonna be paying. I mean, if I look back at the money spent for college, literally, if I just put that into the stock market, easy millionaire, right? So yeah, that's a great point, King of Kills. Mr. 100 Round says, women in the oil field, there are women in the oil field and they hold their own. I worked with a couple of them. Okay, that is awesome. Good. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, Edward, thank you for keeping me honest. I need to remember to say this. Thumbs up, like, share, whatever. Work on the like button for sure. Mr. B, you're right. Baby boomers are lucky for unions. Time to bring them back. And unions. Yes, so many things working in your favor for baby boomers. It's like everything it's like the universe just said, this is the group that's going to get it, right? You got to have all the advantages. Good luck to everybody else, right? Whoever comes after, good luck. But yeah, it's so much. So, okay. Other things about Karen, so she's eligible to get Social Security survivors benefits. Oh, so her husband had probably passed away. Okay. So that's because of June 2019. Her husband 32 years. Ooh, 32 years. That is something. That is amazing. Was suddenly rushed to the emergency room where doctors diagnosed him with kidney cancer. Later, specialists said they couldn't give him chemotherapy. That's so sad. Oh my gosh. He was 67. His last week of life was his first week of retirement. Oh my gosh. Okay. So she's gonna be able to get that. Okay. I don't know what Karen is complaining about, to be honest. I don't know what Karen's complaining about. I will be honest with you. I just, what are you trying to say? Like, you're in a good spot. As far as your financials and what you're looking for, I mean, she is younger. I think she said she was 45, or let me see. Or no, she's in her 60s too. It didn't say her age, but she's got to be in her 60s because all of these folks were 60 at 69. So we're going to move on to William, but let's see what she's saying at the closing remarks. I don't know why I said it like that. Closing remarks. Such devastating losses make a job search look unimportant. Emotionally right now, I think I'm okay, but some days I get real down and out. She said she's working part-time at her church for a lot less pay, but it keeps her busy and she finds comfort in her faith. I go to church and I say, well, it's in God's hand. Whatever he wants, he'll do, and I'm good. Karen doesn't have anything to complain about. I'm moving on. I've said my points about Karen. Next. Okay. William Budd. William Budd, 67. Oh, he should be retired, I would imagine. One of the few people who served in both the U.S. Army and Air Force. Oh, that's amazing. He put in 3.5 years in the Air Force right after high school, then did a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, followed by 17 years in the Army, mostly Germany. Ooh, this is going to be tough. When he retired after 20 years of service, he pursued his dream of being an accountant, getting his bachelor's and master's degree in accounting from the University of North Texas. Okay, hey, when he already had 3 teenage daughters. Okay. Nearly 2 decades of financial analysis or analyst positions followed at companies that range from defense contractors, Raytheon, Honeywell, to restaurant chain Panera Bread. Okay, good companies, largely in Arizona. But in early 2017, he found himself at 64 out of a job. He has been struggling to find full-time work ever since. I've had interviews on site, telephone, or internet with 176 different companies in the Phoenix metropolitan area. And I'm guessing he cannot move. He's probably not relocatable, so he's solely tied, most likely, to Phoenix. But here's the thing. There's a lot of companies saying in moving to a remote first or virtual first environment. So I'm hoping that folks that are not having a lot of luck finding things in their location, they can, find something virtually as well. Especially if you're in the US, a lot of these large companies are saying, hey, work from anywhere, at least temporarily too, right? Okay, so he hasn't received any full-time offers. He's filled the gap with substitute teaching, volunteering at his church, and as a job as a courier that paid half as much as that's not gonna pay. Previous jobs did. Okay. So he said he's struggled financially too. He and his wife, who works in a bank, sold their home and lived with his mother of 2 of their 4 children. We're kind of like the Waltons. Is that what the Waltons are doing? They're rich though. Here's the big expenses, right? The expenses. You're spending the money that you're getting. Years of big expenses and salaries that couldn't quite cover them took their toll. Okay, wait a minute. Years of big expenses. What expenses are you talking about? Big expenses and salaries that couldn't quite cover them took their toll. Not having a paycheck for 2.5 years, I actually had to do a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I probably mismanaged my money a bit. You think? Yes. So back to my point, like having these big extravagant, incomes and not thinking it's ever going to end. I did a book review on Who Moved the Cheese a while back. I think it was 2019 or 2020. It was definitely 2020 because I remember I was on my rooftop in New York City. I was on a rooftop, feeling good. Summertime. It was pretty nice. Anyway, I did a book review on that because it just speaks volumes to what's going on right now and also the shift with the baby boomers. So, just thinking that things are never going to end and not changing that thinking. So with Who Moved the Cheese, you have, and it's very basic, easy read. You have these mice, 2 mice that change their thinking and try different things, change different paths. They're ready for something to happen. They have contingency plans, risk management in place for whatever is to come. Then you have these other 2 that are like, this cheese is getting placed in this maze every day. It's never going to end. The cheese starts dwindling and getting smaller and smaller, and they don't notice anything. They're just like, oh, cheese is never going to end. The cheese just keeps coming. And you have to think differently. We see the changes happening constantly, right? And it's like the baby boomers were in that spot where they had the big cheese just coming and coming. They're not saving any of that cheese, not investing. Again, I'm not talking about all baby boomers. I'm talking about the folks in this scenario, right? But you have to think differently. So anyway, they're in this case. They mismanaged their money. They're trying to get, back on their feet. So he's saying he still has a little personal or retirement savings. Again, I'm just like, how? Though he's been getting a military pension since he left the service and started taking Social Security benefits at 64. That's good. I think the issue is just like, the inflation, the cost of things that continue. And so I'm wondering, when you sell the house, I mean, there's just a lot. I think selling a house would be the last thing to do unless you're just going to a smaller house. I don't think the solution will be moving in with the kids or whatever. But we got to do what we got to do, right? So a few weeks after I interviewed him, Bud messaged me to tell me he had a full-time temporary job, which he hopes will become a permanent one, as an accounting specialist with the state of Arizona. So if he's working as an accounting specialist, I will say that's definitely not paying as much. Like an accounting specialist most likely is going to be paying like 45, 50, maybe 55. In a good role where you have some, pretty decent responsibilities, maybe it's paying 60 or 65. But it is something that's good. I'm so glad he got a full-time temporary opportunity. I would definitely hope that he's had conversations with the company on how does this turn into a full-time, not temporary job, right? So just a full-time employee. So at least there's good news for somebody at a time when there hasn't been much for anyone. Oh man. Wow. Okay. So that was one article. I'm going to stop sharing my screen after I share this one. The other one is just like the pandemic shines the spotlight on ageism. I did share that in the comments as well, or in the about section, not in the comments. Sorry, guys, I went out for a second. But yeah, ageism definitely real. I need to dig into this article because a lot of the points that I talked about, as far as what I see and have seen as a recruiter, there, I mean, some of it is literally, it's just ageism. They're looking at one person of one age and, a younger person saying, look, I want the younger one because, they have this, we have this bias, right? Younger, you're going to be more energetic. You're going to be ready to go. You're going to be able to come in. You're going to maybe stay here longer. And that's not always true to my point about millennials. Like, we will leave. We will leave the company. Now, I feel like a lot more millennials will. Um, we will try to stay. Like, if we find a really good company, we'll stay for maybe, 1, 2, 3 years. But we tend to leave different companies. Just like if a baby boomer were to say in 2 years or 3 years, hey, I'm retired. Okay, well, it happened. So as a recruiter, I actually have to have a lot of conversations to talk with hiring managers to say, okay, yes, this could happen with this person, but it could happen with someone else. It's going to be our job to make sure that we're retaining that employee. So what can we do once we hired them to keep them here? So it's not a matter of we're not hiring someone because, oh, they might leave. Well, anybody could leave, right? So it's a lot of thinking and a lot of bias that comes with the ageism. Let me see. Let me stop and look at some comments in here. I see one. Mr. Rounds is asking if I'm in Houston. I am in Dallas, but I have visited Houston. I do enjoy Houston very much. Hey, Paolindo. Paolindo saying, hey, Jessica. At least I read it, but hello, welcome in. And Edward Smart, I like the cheese analogy. Yeah, that book is just powerful. I have a couple of books that I really love. One is Who Moved the Cheese, because I really feel like every person should read it. And at the time, 2020, I was saying, like, especially now, because, who moved my cheese? It's literally what's happening right now, how companies and people have been able to pivot and businesses have been able to pivot. You see a lot of stories on how, small companies or mom and pop shops couldn't operate or restaurants couldn't operate. So they did something completely different, or they would package up food and, have people just stop by the restaurant and here's your whole family meal. It's pre-packaged for you. You saw a lot of companies, come up and thrive because of the environment. So you do have to constantly be looking at the trends. A lot of the trends that happened, things that happened in 2020 and that are continuing to happen, we already knew they were happening. We knew that automation was happening. We knew automation was happening in the factories. They're building digital factories. We know with fast food, we're going to have robots doing a lot of that cooking work for us. We already see it. There's a company called Miso Robotics where they have this machine literally taking fries, putting in a thing, taking them out, putting the stuff together. Like, The automation we know is happening. The thing is that when you have something like, what we had in 2020, it just fast forwards it. It just makes it, microwave. It zooms it forward, right? So we know these things are happening. So who moved the cheese? Really, the main essence of that is to continue looking. Always look for what are those changes going to be. And again, coming back to the baby boomers, that part was lost. You had people working for companies years and years thinking it's never going to end, when you have to be ready for it may not end, but it may change. You have to be ready to see what those changes are. So what baby boomers can do is, if you're in a role right now, or if you're not in a role, you need to network. The power of your network. Look at your strengths. Look at all those things that you're really good at. Look at the value add and really focus on that. It's not so much to the Karen, like saying, I applied to 45 jobs, nothing happening. It's not always a numbers game. It's more of the quality. Like, what do you really, um, what are those specific skills that you definitely have, and how do you highlight those? How do you brand those? How do you connect with the right people? And baby boomers are really good at that. This is not like I don't want this to be a video where I'm literally ranting and saying, oh, baby boomers, you're doing it wrong. You've been doing it wrong. Haha. It's not that type of video. I don't want it to come across that way. But I do want to highlight, like, hey, here are some things that baby boomers could have done to make their situation better. Like, you look at people like, again, I'll mention Dave Ramsey. He's pivoted his business. He's grown the business. He's a baby boomer. He's gotten on YouTube when YouTube was becoming popular. He's, shifted and done different things, making different tools for people. That type of thinking is like the check mark, yes, for a baby boomer. The type of thinking we're hearing with these stories of folks where they are working in the job 20 years, they haven't, I don't know if they're even interviewing. If it's taking them this long to find something, I'm going to guess they have not been looking at different jobs. They have not been interviewing. They have not been, keeping up their skills. If it's taking this long, So that's really a takeaway there too. Let me check in here because I saw another comment. Hey, Miss Full Roller. The job market feels like older workers are more expensive to have. Yes, and I did talk about this, Miss Full Roller. Yes, there is that comes into play where, you'll look at two resumes. Let's say I have one resume. It's Susanna. Susanna. And she is, I don't know her age, but I know she just came out of college maybe 2 years ago, and she has 2 years of accounting experience. And then I have Billy Bob over here. I don't know why I thought of that. Billy Bob over here, and he has 25 years of experience, but the job only calls for 1 year of experience, right? And he's applying to the job because that's what's out there. It's an accounting specialist job. That's what's out there. Well, am I going to consider both of them, or am I going to say, hey, this person, they're coming out of school, they got 2 years of experience, they meet the basic qualifications of the job, and they're just qualified, they're like within that range, and I know I can pay them a really good compensation, and they can probably stay at the company long. These are the biases that we have, right? They're going to be energetic. They're not going to try to lead everything. They're not going to try to take my job. Sometimes that happens too. We see the cases where a manager doesn't want to hire someone that's older because maybe they have more experience than them, or maybe they come off as very dominant in their conversation, or they know everything, and so they're thinking, oh, they're going to be a know-it-all. I'm not going to be able to teach them because they're already saying they know everything, right? And so some managers find that younger employees and their experience have been more moldable, coachable, readily able to learn new things, pick them up quicker. And so that's their experience, and that follows them as they continue to hire other people. So that ageism, Ms. Full Roller bringing that up, totally agree that part. And then also just the fact that you would pay them more. And so do I need to pay someone more if I can hire someone for less and they're doing the same basic skill? So that's why I said, with the type of jobs you're looking for, sometimes with the more seasoned professionals, they're just applying to the wrong job. You have to make sure that it actually lines up. So think about, if you're going to apply to this accounting specialist job, well, what is the competition going to look like? And what is their pay requirement? Are you going to appear overqualified because of this job? Are you really overqualified? Do you think you're really going to be happy in this job? Or could you move into maybe something like management, or maybe you could be an accounting liaison, or something that requires more leadership, communication ability, which maybe you have. Now, something I also run into is that folks that have had years and years of just the execution experience, and they have not managed, they have not led, they haven't led projects, programs, any of that, and they worked at a company 20 years, and so they're coming out in the market, and other folks are expecting them to have that experience, and then they don't. And so where do you place those folks that are in the middle, where they just want to do the technical stuff, they just want to do the execution work, they don't want to take on leadership responsibility, but that's what you, at your experience level, that's kind of the expectation. Let's see. They are more likely, Ms. Ferrell says, they're more likely to be sicker, and thus health insurance costs are more. And they also, yes, definitely. So that has to be counted in. And the thing is, too, to the point about the baby boomers in this article and hearing these different scenarios, it's like, did you not think about getting older? Because millennials, the folks I know, like, we constantly are thinking about it because we've seen our parents, we've seen the struggle, we have dealt with it ourselves, like coming out of coming out of school, coming out of high school, leaving college, having difficulty finding jobs. We have been through it, and we've seen it. And again, we've seen it with our parents, where we know the system doesn't work for us. We know that we're going to get older. We know that we have to plan for it now. We have to save. We got to do all these things. And I feel like we've always been a little anxious, whereas the baby boomers, they've had it, right? They've had it. They've gotten comfortable. And it's almost like a good and a bad thing, right? Because it's like you get someone real comfortable. You're giving them everything. Kind of like if, let's say I was a stay-at-home mom and I depended solely on my husband, and then something happens to him, right? But we're not set up. He didn't have insurance. He just got hit by a bus, and there you go. That's the end of that. And now I have to figure out, what in the world do I do? Because life was good. I had it cushy. I never thought anything would happen, right? So that's kind of what happened with the baby boomers. Like, things were good, real smooth, and then it's like a bus came, and what happened? It's like, what happened? Everything was great. Barry is saying you're late. I saw the comment and now it's gone. Sorry, I'm late. I missed the notification. That is okay. I changed the notification, so that may be why. I pushed it back for the conference earlier today, but I'm so glad you're here. Paolindo is saying, who is Boomers? A Bloomberg? No, Paolindo, are you being funny, or do you want me to tell you what a boomer is? And I'm saying boomer for short just because that's like how we say it now, but baby boomers, what is the age group? Let me make sure I have the age group of when the baby boomers were born. I probably should have had this before. I'm like over 60. Let's see here. So baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964, and the current ages are, it says, 57 to 75. So those are either approaching 60 or they're in their 70s now. So, yep, that's the baby boomers. And then Gen X, the Gen Xers were born between 1965 and 1979. Oh my gosh, my brother is a Gen Xer. I'm talking bad about Gen Xers. Not talking bad, but I'm just saying no one talks about him. See, I didn't even realize my brother was a Gen Xer. Me and my brother we're about 20 years apart, so he's a Gen Xer. That's funny. Okay, and so then you have your millennials, which were born between 1981 and 1994. Sometimes I say 1996. I don't know. They change it all the time. I feel like they spread it out just so they can include more millennials. It's crazy. So there you go. And then I know the group that comes after me, I never remember them. Let's see. Yes, they were brought up to believe in loyalty and long service to the company, and thus you will be rewarded. That started to change in the 80s. Right, exactly, Miss Full Roller. And so here's the thing, though, the change to your point, that is a lovely point. So that change happened, it started changing in the 80s. So, and I'm born into that, industry of, or the space of, you know, you have to constantly be moving because there is no loyalty with the companies. But to Ms. Fuller's point, they were built to believe in that loyalty. So that's where when my mom comes to me and it's like, you're changing companies, what? Why? You need to stay with the same company. That whole thinking. But my question is, okay, if you're seeing this shift, which brings you back to Who Moved the Cheese, why are you not paying attention to it, right? You're seeing this shift and change. That should tell you something. It really should. So it's sad that folks are now in this really sticky situation. But again, these changes have been happening for a really long time. Like before I was born, this change was happening. And so, and then you have people that haven't even saved. You haven't even saved for it. You haven't prepared for it financially. So let alone the career area, the skilling up, you haven't even prepared for it financially. That's really scary. Boomers are, yes, thank you, Miss Full Roller. Yes, thank you. So Paolo saying, ooh, so my father is a boomer. Yes, so if your father was born during that time, he would be a boomer. For sure. Sharky is saying, so true. You're welcome, Paolo, and Miss Full Roller, thank you so much for sharing that with the group. Boomer is a part of the American generation of boomers were born in Europe too. You know what? That is an interesting point. I don't know if that's more of a just general term because, globalization is so much. I don't know if people really talk about in other countries, especially with translations and things. So I don't know like, if boomer is brought up in Italy or like Spain or anywhere like that. But I don't know. That's good. I'll have to look into that. Or if anyone in the chat knows, let Howland know. Please share with him. But I don't know if there's like would be a direct translation of that. But it's basically just different generational changes between different groups. So if we're looking in the workplace from an HR perspective and like a business perspective, we're looking at these different groups and there's a lot of assumptions that are made with each one. There's a lot of stats that follow each group. I can't say that word. Generationally, I got it. But you have to follow those statistics that will show you those differences. Let's see here. I mean, can I call Boomer my father to an Italian? Oh, you're saying there's an Italian name Boomer. See, I don't know anything about that one, Paolindo. I don't know, but yeah, I'm kind of wondering if that is something that's used in different countries, if they have something similar. I will say in Spanish, I haven't heard anything. Yes, Europe as well. Of course, they will also be cultural differences within general. Yes, exactly. Good point, Ms. Full Roller. Ms. Full Roller is always coming with the information. Mr. B says large companies would have no problem firing or dismissing older protected employees. No job, no pension. On the same token, they bag them to stay as there's no qualified people to hold the plant. Yeah, companies don't have any issue with getting rid of people. I mean, it is tough. Now, with implementing it, the decision is made above, human resources, but the human resources team, they have to be the messenger. They're that messenger of bad news. Now, sometimes we are that person that's saying like, look, you need to terminate an employee, or we need to look at your team and make sure it makes sense for the business. But we're not typically making that call of the decision of we're doing this mass layoff. That's typically not coming from HR. But from termination standpoints, yes, that can come from HR. I will say that I've had to have layoff conversations, and they are, I mean, it's not easy. It's terrible, but you may notice if you've ever been laid off, you probably notice that the HR professional, the manager, whoever, they're either trying to stay positive or they're kind of like no expression on their face because it is tough. We're people, we have that emotion, and we know it could the same way, I could be delivering it to you, it could be me. So it's really tough. But yeah, companies do not, I mean, yeah, it's all about, and more for large companies, about the cost savings. And the even worse thing is that you have these different things happening, where it's terminations and layoffs, while the C-suite, again, leadership, and I talked about it earlier, leadership is normally, they're not the ones typically getting laid off, right? It's the middle management a lot of time, or sometimes it's, first in, first out, those employees that just joined the company, or any job that they're saying, oh, we can replace this, or we can give this work to someone else and they can just do it, or we can hire someone for less pay, whatever it may be. They're looking at those financials. But C-suite leadership, a lot of times their budgets are increasing, like their salaries, their bonuses, all of that typically increasing. There's only a couple of companies that I've seen where they've said, their CEO isn't taking a pay raise this year because they want to make sure they're not having to lay off people. So that's a whole nother conversation, where it's just frustrating, right? Where you see, again, the gap, the rich getting richer, and those that are, just kind of trying to make it, they're having less and less. And then you have things like inflation every year and all these different dynamics that come into play. Sharky is saying Gen Xers rule. What? Hello, Anthony Douglas. Welcome in. Nice to see you here. I think this is my first time seeing you, so nice to see you. If you have questions for me, let me know, as you are newer to the chat, but welcome. Paulindo said, I'm not a boomer. Oh man, Gen Xers rule though. Okay, I know a couple of Gen Xers. My brother is a Gen Xer, which, again, not even thinking of it. I just know he's older than me. He's sometimes my brother, sometimes feels like my uncle. And yes, my mother had me late in life. I was not playing. It was a mama, daddy, I'm here. You're a uni boomer. What does that mean? Uni boomer. Mr. Lava, Mr. What in the world? Paolindo is saying all kinds of stuff. You are funny. I'm surprised Paolindo isn't here telling us about his dinner. It's what I'm surprised to see. So I think I need to hop off of here soon. I'm like burping, guys. Excuse me. I don't know why. I was drinking this tea earlier, like a detox. You guys know I always have some kind of something on deck, but I was drinking this peach detox tea because I'm just trying to maintain my weight and stuff. And I've been having these weeks. I'll have a week where I'm really good, and I'll have a week where I'm really bad. I'm like, I need to focus and get it together, because summertime is about to be here and I'm trying to travel. Okay. I'm trying to travel and do some stuff, and I don't want to look like, the videos where they're like before the quarantine, after the quarantine. I want to look like quarantine wear. I don't want to look like I've been in quarantine or been staying at home or any of that. Let me see. Ms. Fulroll is saying, now I know several Gen Xers. Yes, I do. I do. And you know what? So because of the years and how people look, I mean, wouldn't even think my brother is his age, but he is. He's a Gen Xer. It's crazy. Um, that's a song, Jessica, that Powell and oh my gosh, you guys know I don't know music. Unless it's like, again, 90s. Some 90s music, some. Because I was very young during the 90s. So I claim the 90s because that's my birth year, but I was also very young and I could listen to a lot of music that other kids could listen. Like, if it wasn't gospel to my mother, or if I wasn't with my dad, I wasn't listening to it, or I had to listen to it with the, headphones, or while my mother couldn't say, "What are you listening to?" But I do know some 90s music, and 2000s, of course, is my era. Let me go back to the lyrics, though. I want to see Mr. I did not know those lyrics, Valendo. I don't know those lyrics at all. Wow. What's the song? I'm curious. I have no idea what that song is. But getting back, I guess, on topic, I I have a lot of thoughts on just the whole baby boomer thing, and hopefully maybe someone from this article watches the video, or maybe there's a baby boomer that will see the video and get some tips from it. Just we pretty much all have to be doing the same thing, but when you're getting to that age, I think it's all about using your network to find job opportunities, being flexible, like to the point in the article where the guy decided to shift into another industry, being willing to learn, and basically kind of coming across and fighting a lot of those, I guess, biases that a lot of people have, a lot of hiring managers have, and also looking at opportunities to be a business owner or a consultant, because you have so much experience, so much knowledge. Those are things that people cannot take away. Someone coming into the organization, they're needing to learn. You can't take that away. And I think something else, my experience of the lady saying, "Oh, I've been here longer than you've been born." I think the challenge too is that companies will ask our baby boomers or our older, more seasoned professionals, "Hey, can you train this person?" All the time, all the while they're planning to maybe get rid of some of those folks, or even planning to get rid of you, or they're saying, "We're going to have these layoffs, they're planned, and we need you to get these people ready that are going to take over your position." And that is something else that's really tough. It's like, what do you mean you want me to train this person? What do you mean? I can't even imagine someone coming to me and be like, "Hey, we gotta get rid of your job, right? But yeah, we're gonna need you to train this person over here, because we're still gonna have you work for a month. We need you to get them ready, but you gotta go. Come, April 31st. We're sorry." It's just, that's really tough, and I know that those type of layoffs do happen. I know they do. Let's see here. Anthony is saying Shabba Ranks. Is that who the singer was? Let me see here. Mr. B, you misunderstood me. It's more profitable to lose an employee that has a pension built up than it is to let go a new hire. It depends. It depends. So there are calculations that the company will do. So before they even made the decision, they will look at the cost savings and looking at everything, right? So looking at the full benefits. So to your point, a lot of cases it probably is, but looking at the full benefits and the salary, everything else, and then their cost savings. So there's the analysis that they will run to determine if the cost savings is enough and makes sense to go ahead and lay someone off. Now, I will say companies also do layoffs in a different way, where they're saying, "We're going to kind of manage that retirement. We're going to pay you to retire." And that's a really nice, cushy spot to be in as well for some people. I know someone where they were in one of these programs, so they're paid to go ahead and push their retirement, right? And they went ahead and they were working somewhere else, and so they're getting this money. They're still getting paid from the company, and then they're, they got this new job, and so they've got all kinds of money coming in. So some people are, doing fine with those kind of scenarios. But yes, you definitely have to look at the cost savings. It is a cost. It is kind of a case by case comparison with the cost savings for companies. Thanks for clarifying that, Mr. B. We are the Y generation, right? Yeah, I think the Y generation is right now. The Y generation kind of scares me a little bit. Just a little bit. So sad, the worst. Oh no, there's the Z generation there. No, I don't think any of them are really worse, but there's benefits to each one. There's stigmas with each of the generations come different biases that we have about them. The media kind of portrays each generation a little differently. So, for example, the baby boomers have been portrayed as, you have like the memes, okay, boomer, and all this stuff, where boomers are portrayed as being kind of stagnant, not movable, not trainable, not coachable. They're preaching to everyone else on what they're doing wrong. You have this kind of image of them. Again, that a lot of times is portrayed by the media, and a lot of it's not true. Some of it is, because it's not, everything isn't just a generality, but yeah, you have different things. And then millennials, we were the entitled, we were the brats, we were the ones that were always asking, why is it done this way? Why can't we do it that way? I want to do it this way. What are you going to do for me? And I'm coming into this company, what are you doing for me? When am I going to be promoted? All of this. And it's because we had to ask. It's because it was not come into the company, you work a year, you see your contributions and you automatically get these things. It's like we have to demand it. Let's see here. Anthony Douglas said I was wrong. What were you wrong about, Anthony? Thank you, Edward. Okay, I'm going to hop off of here. I've seen this firsthand. Scared senior employees working to the rule. New hires texting, no safety wear texting. Big corporation do this a lot. Okay. Good point, Mr. B. Well, I am going to get off of here. I need to get my grocery delivery. So I need to check on that. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for being here for round 2 of Jessica Hicks Talks. Be sure to like the video. And if you have other thoughts, please do leave me a comment after this video comes up. Share it if you know someone that is a baby boomer and they are looking for some tips. I will continue talking about this. The next video that I will be catering around this subject will be millennials are suffering. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I will also be talking about in the live soon about women. I did a post in the community section about just the big pay gap between white women and Black women, and I'm going to be talking about that coming up soon, so look out for it. And the last thing I do want to note, that I will be doing a Black History trivia tomorrow. I need to figure out the time, I need to create it, but I am looking forward to it because it is the end of the month and I want to talk about Black history and Black people that were great in our history and even folks that are making history right now. And so I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, probably during the afternoon or like late morning. So keep an eye out for it. Definitely set your notifications when you see it. And yeah, that's all I got. I hope you all have a lovely Saturday. And I so much appreciate you for hanging out with me today. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.